Have you ever thought about what happens when you die? Well, for starters, it's a really emotional time for your family, and they're going to have a lot of different things to navigate. When you add different legal complexities on top of that, and maybe you didn't provide the clearest instructions, you're just asking for additional chaos if something's happened to you. To avoid that, a good solid estate plan that lays out your wishes, defines the different roles that you want people to step in, and defines on what terms your beneficiaries ultimately receive your assets is a great way to avoid some of that chaos. In North Carolina, having to go through a probate proceeding can be really, really expensive. It can be really, really time consuming. And if we have disputes amongst family members, it can drag that administration out for a really long period of time. That's where trust can really help. And so a revocable trust ultimately helps make sure that we've clearly defined your wishes, we've moved assets out of that probate proceeding, and we give a trustee the ability to help mediate things like disputes amongst family members and follow the wishes that you've laid out in a really clear manner. If your assets are exposed to probate, typically that means that the assets at the bank or in these investment accounts that you might have, generally they're going to be frozen until there's certain permission from the clerk of court's office to go and access those assets. This can put your family in a really big financial bind if they're having to pay for final expenses, and perhaps they're even having to cover those out of pocket just to seek reimbursement later. To avoid that, we typically use something called a revocable trust that allows you to give access to your assets sooner so that those final expenses can be paid. When someone doesn't have an estate plan or a revocable trust in place, a number of different disputes might come up. One is, well, what do we do with the house? So if you owned a primary residence and you have multiple children, it's almost inevitable that one wants to sell the house, one might want to keep it. Your trust can make sure that you have clear instructions about what you want to see happen. Another thing that often comes up are just the little family heirloom type items. You wouldn't think that that taxidermied fish on the wall or that grandfather clock in the hallway would cause such a rift between your family. But if you're able to just document who you think should receive each of those assets and give those instructions to your trustee, they're able to carry out those wishes, and they're able to point to a document that says, no, child A is getting this, child B is getting that, and it helps clear up a lot of confusion during the administrative process. Some of the other types of things and disputes that might come up is if you haven't talked about it, what happens with your remains? Are you buried? Are you cremated? Is there a certain type of service that you want? All of these things are wrapped up into a complete estate plan that maybe you're not thinking about when you think, oh, I just need to get a simple will in place. So making sure that you have those conversations with your family and making sure that those get documented are two really important steps that we want to make sure we go through when we set up an estate plan for you. One of the things we keep coming back to is that probate can get really expensive, but I want to put some color to that. Essentially, if assets are going through probate, North Carolina is going to charge some kind of a transfer fee that roughly translates to about $4 for every $1,000 that goes through a probate proceeding. Now there's caps on that amount, but that doesn't include things like attorney time or lawyers or legal fees or accounting fees that we have to deal with if we're going through a formal probate proceeding. What that translates to is that big chunks of your estate might get wiped out through an administrative process if we aren't careful with how we plan. Ultimately, after you pass away, there's often just a lot of confusion and some really expensive and time-consuming processes that we have to go through. We do get the opportunity to avoid some of that by engaging in careful estate planning and making sure that we use tools like revocable trusts to avoid probate, to clear up any disputes, and make it really, really clear where you want your assets to wind up. So if you're interested in talking about how a revocable trust might fit into your estate plan, give us a call. NC Planning's happy to help.